Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature, Beguiling Bhutan and Nepal, presented by NatHab expedition leaders Payal Mehta and Arpita Dutta. Ladies, thank you so much for being here today. Payal, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you, Kendall, and thank you everyone for being here today to listen to this webinar. We are so excited to bring this to you. So the idea behind this webinar is to take you all on a virtual journey through Nepal and Bhutan, which is one of NatHab's very, very special trips. And before we begin, a short introduction. I'm Payal, and I have been guiding for NatHab since 2014. I guide in Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka and India. And with me today, I have another EL, Arpita. Arpita, please, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Payal. This is Arpita. I have been guiding with Natural Habitat Adventures since 2018 to India, Nepal, and Bhutan. And yes, we are excited today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a special reason. It's a special reason, though. So Arpita and I are both from India, and we guide. We are honored to say that we guide. We get to guide in Nepal and Bhutan. One is because they are such special destinations, but more than that, just in our personal lives, just the way life went, I got a chance to live in Bhutan for a couple of years, and Arpita, on the other hand, got also a chance to live in Nepal. In fact, Chitwan, isn't it, Arpita?
Yes, in Chitwan for a couple of years. Yes.
Yeah, in Chitwan National Park for a couple of years. So when you live in a place, you know it in a completely different way. And after our stints in both these countries independently, we got a chance through NatHab to actually lead trips in these countries. And we were both just absolutely overjoyed.
Yes.
And more than that, Arpita and I got a chance to lead one of these Nepal Bhutan trips together as co-guides, and so on this webinar, we are bringing to you, not just taking you, on a virtual journey through this trip, but also going down our own memory lane, on that very special trip that we led together. So without further ado, I'm going to just take you through a small overview. So as you know, some of you may already know, Nepal and Bhutan are both mountainous countries. They are nestled in the Himalayas, the Himalayan mountain range, which is the world's highest and one of the youngest mountain ranges. And look at this world map right here in front of you. This here is Nepal, and this is Bhutan. What you see, the white line running all the way west to east, is the Great Himalayan Mountain Range along with its subsidiary ranges. And if you look at Nepal and Bhutan, they are sandwiched between two mega giant countries, China to the north and India to the south. If someone would look at this map, just at the world map, they'd think that what might be so special in Nepal or Bhutan? I mean, they're bound to be influenced by these mega cultures on either side of them. But you'll be surprised how different they are, not just from, China and India, but they also are so different from each other, which makes this trip so very special and so full of experiences. Having said that, because Nepal is so close to Arpita's heart, she's going to start off with the trip in Nepal.
Yeah. So here, when we start off, we do it from Nepal. And Nepal, mostly as a city, we visit Kathmandu and Chitwan. But then we move to Bhutan, including these three cities, Thimphu, Paru, and Punakha. But okay, so let's begin our journey. So to start with the journey, once you step at the Tribhuvan International Airport, which is at the capital city of Nepal, and which is Kathmandu, the first experience of this international airport is just like a crowded train station. But no need to worry, because once you step out, there will be always someone to greet you, to receive and welcome you and take you to your next destination. And after you get out from the airport, just settle in at the Dwarka Heritage Hotel, which is like an oasis in between the hustle and bustle of the city of Kathmandu. And there, just take little time for yourself, because in the evening we will be there to disturb you. I mean, to give you all the briefing about what we are going to do next, and we will enjoy the welcome dinner together. But let me tell you, you need to take enough rest and relax your brain, because from next few days, you all are going to have a blast with wilderness and history and culture. So the next day morning, again, we go back to that huge train station like airport, and we take our first domestic flight, which fly to Bharatpur. It's an experience because the flight only fly just 10,000 feet above the ground. But that excitement ends just in 20 minutes. It's a very short flight. And once you get down in Bharatpur, another incident happens. You get an experience of a bus stop, okay, where there is nothing. You just get down from a small plane and you just walk towards the exit gate. There is nothing, no big bus, no AC things, nothing. And funny part is, this is the first time, and even when for me, when I visited Bharatpur for the first time, I saw that my luggages are following behind me. The same thing will happen to you in a trolley. A person will pull that up to you, and then you have to just get through that, which one is your luggage, and you have to pick them up. But again, we never leave you alone. Again, there would be somebody from the hotel we will be going to take us safely to there, and it will take just 40 minutes from the airport to our next luxury lodge, the Megholi Sarai. And this is the place, I mean, you can call it your home for next few days, but calling it as a home, don't relax, okay? Just you have to pull up, just freshen up and pull up your socks, because we are going to have our very first afternoon safari on the same day. So while you are getting ready, let me give a little brief about Chitwan. So this is the area where we live, where is our lodges. And if you see on the right hand side, the darkest area, that's the core area of the Chitwan National Park. And this side is the community forest. And see, there are no boundaries. So we are like the one where the animal could come to see us. So that would be really fascinating. So yes, and Chitwan is situated on the south central lowland of the Himalayas foothills, which we call a Terai arcland. And it has a mixed habitat, like it has grassland, riverine forest, semi-evergreen forest, deciduous forest, I mean, what not? And can you imagine, I mean, so many habitats can be a home for so many species. I mean, the species diversity is just top notch. And here, just in front of our lodge, you see the grassland, this beautiful grassland, and you see the river. That's important, because you are going to greet this river for quite a few number of times, because whenever we are going to go for a safari, we have to cross this river, and the same thing, we have to come back to the lodge by crossing the river. So this is Rapti. And so I guess you are ready after the lunch. Don't get so much of time, because believe me, with this wilderness and cultural like safari, you are going to have a food safari all the way long, trying different cuisine. But we will get back to that later. So let's get ready for our first vehicle safari. And let me tell you, Chitwan is that kind of a park where our safari begins, even before when we get into the vehicle. Let's look at this. And everybody is busy before even getting into the vehicle doing some birding. Okay, and even on the first time, we got to see some fresh tiger and pugmas, isn't it, Payal? I mean, just after
Absolutely.
crossing.
Absolutely, Arpita. I will never forget that. We had just crossed the river by boat, just got on to the shore, and slowly everyone is just casually walking towards the vehicles, and right under our noses, there were fresh tracks of a tiger. So while we were asleep back at the lodge or having our first cup of coffee, probably, the tigers had just walked, and the rhinos, both tracks were there, just across from the river. I mean, how amazing is that?
Absolutely. Imagine, I mean, that from there the excitement builds up, isn't it? I mean, the animals are all around you, just they're playing hide and seek. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Yes. So once we are crossing a little patch of grassland and riverine forest, we have to reach a gate where a mandatory checking has been done by the army people. So army people are deployed for the Chitwan National Park, and rather are many other national parks in Chitwan to give more protection to wildlife. And before we could enter, Pyle, you got really lucky that you didn't get this traffic. Trust me, in this couple of years, while I was staying in Chitwan, this fellow is like always in the middle of the track and flaunting its beauty. And he has that never give up attitude to the female. Okay, and yeah, we are delighted to see it. But yeah, it's most of the time it happens. So that's why we got 10 minutes late. I mean, after you, I mean, once your vehicle passed. But talking about this beautiful peafowl, Chitwan is a place where birding, the word birding gets its real meaning. I mean, imagine in a park which is just 452 square kilometer, and it has diversity like 650 birds into that park. And while during migration, it reaches up to 800. Oh gosh, I mean, that's just overwhelming. I mean, imagine the sizes and various habitat. I mean, this great Indian hornbill, which is a frugivore, but it's so huge that when it's fly over, you can hear the wing sound of like whoosh whoosh sound, and if it's flying low, you can actually feel the wind on your shoulder. Wow.
Yeah,
And
like a
then
fan.
comes to this tiny fellow, which is smaller, much smaller than a crow, the pied falconet. But it's strong enough to hunt down a dove-sized bird just next to it. But luckily, this fellow, this is an emerald dove, they get a lucky escape because I call it a F1 fighter plane, the way it flies. And no matter how entangled and how branched covered the forest is, it's find the minimum gap and just zoop, it goes in. And not only that, so this is about the forest part. And because Chitwan is a place where so many river system, lakes, wetlands are there, we got to see a lot of waders, fowls, a lot of raptors. And this is the ruddy shell duck, which is flying this orange color. And I find very similarity with this duck because whoever knows me, they know that I talk a lot. And this duck never stop chatting. They kind of talk always, and especially the female does that a lot. After that, this is a very elegant duck goose, which is the bar-headed geese. You see during winter, and so even our NatHab trips happen in winter. So there are high chances to see them in a big flock. And then we have the osprey. Again, this is the one and only one in its family. And most of the time we see them doing fishing and stuff. So yeah, there are a lot of raptors family in Chitwan. And after the birds, I mean, Chitwan definitely don't stop here. And yeah, Fahim, uh, yeah, let me tell you all that over here, once we spot this bird in the grassland, we were so excited, me and Payal, because this is one of the rarest and the globally critically endangered bird. Okay, we forgot to spell out the name. We were just so excited to see this Bengal florican, isn't it, Payal?
Absolutely, Arpita. You know, this is one of those birds that you as a naturalist have time and again flipped through your bird book and looked at it picture and wished, I hope one day I'll be able to see this bird. And all the time during that time on the side you hear that IUCN has declared it as critically endangered. And imagine of all places in Chitwan, where the last survey, I think there were what, 14 individual birds, 1 4, and all of a sudden, when you're least expecting it, and it is so brilliantly well camouflaged, and you get to see this bird, we were on top of the world, like it was bigger than anything else.
Yeah, because in my time in Chitwan, I have seen that bird only once, and this is my second
Imagine
time
in
seeing
2 years.
in 2 years. That's
Wow.
absolutely right. Yeah,
What a lucky day.
even all our guests even pitched in into our crazy sighting. Even you can see they have just climbed up into the roof of the vehicle to have a better look. But here comes the mammal. I mean, all the other animals we get to see is this spotted deer. Of course, it's because of the spots in its body, we call it spotted deer, but I always call that we spot this deer very easily. That's the reason why we call it a spotted deer. And then we have the hog deer. The grassland, it is mostly a grassland deer you find in this Terai land only. And then we have another fellow, always busy or curious. That's the wild pig. Though it is not like Pumbaa, I mean, the Timon Pumbaa from Lion King, it's much smaller than that. But it's just like the nature's own plowing machine. It keeps on digging the, soil. So imagine so many that's the reason why maybe so many saplings grow so nicely in that area. And after that, we have our showstopper of this park is our greater one-horned rhino, the second largest rhino in the world, and always armored, tough and rough. But yeah, there's always looks like they're always ready to fight, but no, but not really. They are wonderful creatures. They are just amazing. I mean, you're looking at them, you like all the puzzles of your imagination can come together, and then this kind of a animal you see in front of you. And yes, then we have the elephant. But this is a luck by chance thing because Chitwan doesn't have elephant all around the year. Only in winter, the elephants migrate here. And mostly the male do migrate here. And so if any time happens, because same thing, our NATAP trips happens in winter, so chances are there. But imagine, Chitwan has one of the highest density of tiger, but still it's so difficult to spot a tiger just because of the habitat. Hardly you can see after 2-3 meters. The forest is so dense and they get well camouflaged in it. So it's very hard to spot. But in our NATAP trip, we do something really exciting. That is, we have an expert with us who come along with us, and if we get to see some fresh tiger tracks, he make us to know a lot about the tiger, like the pug mark, how to make a mold, whether it's a male or a female, it's a sub-adult or an adult. It's all about where the tiger is moving, all of it. So it's an intense thing whichever is happening. And after this session, trust me, the imagination can make you see tigers almost behind every bush. Okay, but other than tiger, there is another elusive cat, which is the leopard. This dense patch of forest. I'm sure, Payal, I mean, there are so many times maybe the leopard has seen us, but it's so difficult, to get to see those blotches in between this. So they are mastered in camouflaging technique. And look at this. I mean, this is beautiful. It just blends with the surrounding, isn't it? And then we have the next is the sloth bear. No, they are not slow at all. Trust me. I mean, I had to run because of sloth bear, and then I realized it's no use of running. I mean, do a competition with a sloth bear. So their name came because they have the fingernails are like sloth, and it's a bear. So they came together as a sloth bear. So you get to see them quite sometimes. I mean, again, it's all like with your tracking, and you feel that how suddenly it came out from the bush or on your track. And then we have this reptile diversity, I would say, is the Burmese python. It's one of the largest. I mean, after the reticulated python, you get to see python, you get to see the critically endangered gharial, which you see only in this patch of Nepal, and there is another place in India where you get to see them, nowhere else in the world. And we don't stop here in Chitwan. We have another species of crocodile, which is the mugger. Look at this fat fellow. Okay, it seems like it has stored all the fat for the winter. Okay, and these are mostly fish eaters, so it's not because they have eaten a human. Of course, these are like all the river food they feed on. And while going through all these animals, I mean, there are a lot more. But we cross few of the beautiful patches of the forest. I mean, imagine it's so dense. I mean, even the sunlight cannot penetrate. Okay, you only see the beings. And then again, after crossing this patch, maybe for a kilometer, and then again you get into the grassland, and you suddenly see a rhino is just walking by. And you get again excited by seeing that. And yes, your lenses are focused, all your eyes and camera. Yeah, after that, so all this safari, I must tell you, these all roads in safari gives you a really good exercise. I mean, you know, they pump you up for your muscles, for your bones. But then after finishing all this safari thing, we have to cross the river. There, our boat always there. I mean, always there. They keep the boat there. We just climbed in, hopped in, and we crossed the river. And that's our lodge view from the jungle. And the mountain behind is the Mahabharat range. And behind that, you have the whole Snow Peak mountain covered that. So if we are lucky enough, if there is no cloud, we got an amazing view of that. So here our safari doesn't end. So we can also do walking, a small nature walk. And on the last day especially, I told you to release all those muscle pain, you have to release your like aura of the forest. We do canoeing, which is very pleasant. Only you could hear the sound of the water and the birds, and of course the ruddy-shelled duck. Okay, and then you move on. So this is Rapti, and next this Rapti goes and merge itself into Narayani. So this is the conferencing point of this two river, and here we spend some beautiful time the sunset, and we come back to the lodge. And again, after a little bit of food safari at night, we next day we straight away go to Bharatpur and fly back to Kathmandu. And on that day, some expert guide is there who is expert in culture and history of Nepal. He takes us to Bodhanath Stupa and Bhaktapur, okay, and tell more stories about Nepal over there. And yes, here we end our Chitwan story, a short trip. Yes, Payal, I'm very excited to go to Bhutan now.
Wow, Arpita, that was such a fantastic, quick, and amazing snapshot of our trip in Nepal. Really, it's a very wildlife intensive experience. And then, for all of you who are listening here, just to know that day after tomorrow, Arpita is going to do an in detailed one on Chitwan National Park. It's coming over on the 9th, isn't it, Arpita?
Yes, on 9th, yeah.
Yeah, so all of you who are interested, you all must join her on the 9th to hear more about this beautiful, amazing Chitwan National Park. But for now, we're going to move on with her lovely virtual trip and go from Nepal to Bhutan. This trip, the Bhutan part of the experience, starts as soon as your flight takes off from Kathmandu, because the flight flies all along the Great Himalayan National Park, the Great Himalayan Mountain Range. And if the skies are clear, you have a fantastic chance of seeing these snow-capped mountains. And sometimes, if luck and weather permits, we may even see Mount Everest. In fact, this photo here in front of you is of Mount Everest right here. This one taken from a flight going from Nepal to Bhutan on one of our NATAB trips. And then it doesn't end there, because when you land into Bhutan, the landing itself is one of the most thrilling landings of any flight in the world. The airplane has to go maneuver through between hills to land into a narrow valley of Paro. And when you land in Paro, after this thrilling experience, the moment you step out of the plane, it's just the air of Bhutan, just the ambience. It's so relaxing, it's so peaceful, so calming. We often compare it to walking into a spa almost, especially after a thrilling flight like that. And it's so interesting. So Paro is one of the cities of Bhutan, which has the international airport. But from there, we drive straight away to Thimphu. Thimphu is the capital city of Bhutan, and this capital city may be the only capital city in the world which does not have its own airport. So you have to land in Paro and drive for about an hour to Thimphu. But this is Bhutan, and there is so much to see. So even before you reach, before I forget, when you walk out of the airport, you will meet one of our very able, pleasant, charming local guides. Here we have the photograph of Dorji, who often accompanies us on our trips in Bhutan. And from here onwards, we actually co-lead the trip with him. He is like an encyclopedia of knowledge about this country. Anyway, so along with him, we move on, drive away from Paro and move towards Thimphu. And much before we reach Thimphu, just on the way, we have something to see already. What you see here in front of you is this beautiful long iron bridge. We call it the Iron Chain Bridge. In everything that you see in Bhutan, there is this amazing, fantastical, mythological, almost unbelievable story behind it. And this iron bridge is one such thing. The story goes that this iron bridge was built by one of the deities in Bhutan, who built this iron bridge using his hand as a hammer and his thigh, his leg, as an axle. And with that, he built this entire links and links of chain to build this whole bridge. And we go see that. It's usually beautifully decorated with beautiful Bhutanese prayer flags, and underneath runs a lovely clear stream. You can see right through, right to the bottom of the stream. With that on the way, we move ahead and reach Thimphu to spend our next 2 days over there. There's so much to see in Thimphu, and we are going to touch upon a few highlights. Here, what you have in front of you is the Thimphu Zong, D-Z-O-N-G. So Zong means a fortress or a fort. The local language of Bhutan is not Bhutanese. It's called Dzongkha, which means the language of the Zong. That's the official language of Bhutan. And here, what you see is the beautiful fort of the capital city. It's not only very, very pretty, a historical, beautiful building, but it's also till today's date still an active building. The current king of Bhutan and the chief abbot use this as their office. What an amazing, beautiful government office, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I wish the same thing here as well.
I know when you look at some of the boring buildings and then you look at this as a government office, isn't this just so fantastic? As some of you may already know, Bhutan has a very interesting political scenario. So basically, it has the monarchy. It also has religion. So the king and the chief abbot both have equal powers. While they hold the head seat in the country's politics, under them to actually run the country for the administration, there is an elected government. So they do have a prime minister and a cabinet of ministers with him. And all of these important officers operate out of this beautiful zone. And then we also get to see the giant Buddha statue. What you see over here, where the Buddha statue looks like a little toy, is a picture taken from far away. When you actually go up there, you can see the whole valley of Thimphu down below, where every house and every road looks like a little toy city. Up close, this is how gorgeous the Buddha statue is. This is one of the newest structures in Bhutan that we get to see. It got ready just a few years ago. And it's really, really stunning. And underneath the Buddha statue right here, there's a beautiful temple which we get to visit if we are in the right time, because it has timings of openings and closings. So this is about, we've seen the monument, we've seen the statue, but this is a NatHab trip, right? There has to be wildlife. And in Thimphu, we get to see the national animal, the takin. This takin is a very strange animal. They call it a goat antelope. Interestingly, recent genetic studies says that it's neither a goat nor an antelope, or maybe a bit of both, but more closely related to the family of sheep, really. It's really a very fascinating animal to see. The story is that these takins are actually a migratory kind of animal, who go up and down altitudes and east and west in the mountains of the Himalayas and even in China, depending on weather. But this particular group of takins, in one very adverse conditions of weather, descended down into the valley of Thimphu. The kind people over there started feeding it. And this group of takins never left. So to protect them, they built a huge enclosure. And these takins live here happily ever after. Along with this enclosure, they built a few other enclosures where, either injured or needy animals were put. And this has become like a little zoo, but it's a fantastic place to view this wildlife, which is otherwise so rare to see. And this area is covered with forest. So our eyes are always out for other things, other wildlife that you may get to see there. However, whenever I speak about the takin Arpita, I can never speak about it without thinking of our amazing experience that we had together, on our trip. So for our viewers, what happened is that we had a huge snowfall. At any other time, this would have been like kind of a problem on a trip, maybe, because it's going to, affect your, further sightseeing or whatever it is. But that was not the case on our trip. That is because it was Arpita's first ever snowfall that she'd ever seen in her life. And her excitement, oh God, Arpita. Please tell us.
I was just a newborn calf, suddenly came out and start limping on my feet to know that I am standing the way they do. I was kind of enjoying the snow like that. And thankfully, and I was doing what not. I mean, and I'm so thankful to you. And of course, I won't say as guest, they all also become a family. I mean, while traveling, and how they have managed or how they actually got involved into my crazy experience, to give me more happiness and how I should enjoy, and all these throwing snowballs at me and stuff. So it was one of the most memorable time, I would say, and the highlight for my
All of us just couldn't help it, Arpita. Your joy of seeing the snow for the first time in your life was so infectious that we had to join the party. I mean, there was no other way out. I mean, look at you.
Look at me, I forgot my age. Yeah.
I know you were like a little child. It was such an amazing experience. And luckily, the snow stopped afterwards, and we could enjoy all the rest of it as per plan, and that really helped. But yeah,
Right.
that's Thimphu for you. You know, that's traveling for you actually. You never know when what might happen, right?
True.
So moving on, Thimphu has more to offer. Not just monuments or wildlife, but also it gives you a very nice opportunity to look into some of the arts and crafts of Bhutan, which Bhutan really, really holds at high value. Like, for example, what you're seeing here are the fabrics that they weave locally. And it's a tradition that's gone on for centuries. Here, who you see is Samuel. Sam is one of our drivers who often accompanies us on our trips, and what he's wearing is one of the national clothing. It's called Go, Gho. And what you're seeing, what he's pointing at all over here are called kiras, Kira. Kiras are these beautiful fabrics that are draped by women in the country. You know, that's their national dress, and they're just the most colorful, most beautiful. And in Thimphu, sometimes we get a chance to actually visit the weaving centers and watch them make these beautiful fabrics. And similarly, even paper. Bhutan has kept up its tradition of how they used to make paper, you know, traditional way of making paper. And it's a completely manual, non-electric process. And sometimes we actually get to see it, look at the final product, you know, these amazing creative ways in which they have so many different textures of paper. And look at this one particular paper shown here in the photograph. It's made with 2 layers of paper in which they have, you know, sandwiched parts of plants and leaves. Look how beautiful this paper looks. And sometimes you get a chance to view this and maybe even buy some, you know. Anyway, so that's about Thimphu. After 2 lovely experience-packed days in Thimphu, we set out the next morning on a beautiful mountainous drive to the next destination, which is Punakha. But on the way, we have to pass a very high pass. It's about 10,000 feet plus. And this pass, Dochula Pass, is marked by this beautiful construction of 108 Buddhist stupas. This is actually a war memorial, but it's really beautiful, and there's stairways all around it, and you can actually walk amongst these stupas. And as always, if there is a good weather, of open sky, you have a chance to see the beautiful Great Himalayan mountain range, the snow-capped peaks, you know, the most easternmost part of the Himalayan mountain range from up top here. And from here, it's a journey downwards. We descend in altitude, but on this drive, once again, we never stop looking for wildlife, right? And who knows, you never know, you might see some beautiful birds, you know, like this sparrowhawk here shown in the picture, or this beautiful, beautiful wall creeper. This bird is just so stunning. It's very rare to see. It's not like we see it on every trip, but on our trip, again, when Arpita and I were there, we had this beautiful chance of seeing this lovely bird. You know, it seems to defy gravity, the way it can crawl, grip on vertical walls and, you know, stony cliffs, prying between cracks, you know, looking for insects with this long, thin beak that it has. And when it flies, you know, for a first timer, trust me, it can look like a big butterfly, you know, flying solo through the open skies, you know, in these mountains. It's just so stunning. And then, like that, we go right down almost to about, you know, 1,500 feet, which is way, way, way low down. And over here, it's much, much warmer, right? Your jackets come off, you know, you peel off your layers. And here, Punakha is again most famous for its own zong. So all of these towns were little, you know, sort of governor bodies back in time, and all of these have their own zongs. And Punakha zong is supposed to be the most beautiful song in the country. And look at the location. Look at this. Between two beautiful mountain streams, you have this song that's placed there right at the confluence. The present king of Bhutan actually chose this as his destination to get married. Moving on, Punakha is also the spot where we do a lot of hikes. So every day in Punakha, there's a beautiful trek, either to a mountain or to a temple or another beautiful spot. And usually these hikes go through beautiful, forests or farmlands. It is such a wonderful way to experience a country, just to slow down a little and to walk. And Punakha, especially, being warmer and lower, is a hub of farming. They produce so many different vegetables, they have cattle, they produce different kinds of cheese, and all of this is sold, in local markets. And just, that reminds me, Arpita, that all the farming in Bhutan is actually 100% organic. They have never used and do not use any kinds of chemicals, pesticides or fertilizers. I mean, isn't that amazing? They still use cow dung as their fertilizers. Fantastic, isn't it? Okay, speaking of produce, we can't speak about produce in Bhutan and not speak about chilies. It is such an integral part of Bhutan. This country, with a population of 800,000 people approximately, produces over 12,500 tons of chili peppers every year. And guess what? That's still not enough. They, after this, often need to import chilies from India. This is because they love their chili, and that's why even their national dish, which is a photograph shown here, which is a combination of chilies, any chilies will do, green, red, dry, fresh, which is mixed with cheese. It is an absolutely delicious dish. It's called emadatsi, and on our trip, we promise to make you try some.
Yes, and yeah, and while doing this emadachi with cheese and chili, every time it's rest assured that I gain some weight for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I just add on few pounds.
I know, emadatsi for a week.
Yeah.
And a good way, Arpita, to lose that weight would be the national sport.
Right.
It's not big on cardio, but the national sport of Bhutan is archery. When we spend a week in Bhutan, there is a good chance that we get to see a match in action. Usually people use weekends, Saturdays, Sundays, off time to play these games, and they really take it very, very seriously. So sometimes on our trips, if we come across a game of archery, we definitely make it a point to stop and watch it for some time. It's a fantastic way they play. You have to see it to believe it. The range between the target and the shooter is, I think, twice even the distance that they use in Olympics, maybe more. It's really, really far away, and the target is so small that it's hard to see for an inexperienced person. But these people are just so good at it, so well practiced. And yeah, we may get a chance to see this amazing sport live sometimes. And if you're lucky, you may even get a chance, to try a hand at it. So why we speak about these amazing cultures, whether it's weaving or the sport, it's time to think of how amazing the country's philosophy is, right? The gross national happiness. This is a country that decided to mark its progress not by GDPs that the rest of the world is doing, but they came up with a way to measure happiness. And this concept of gross national happiness, which came into play somewhere around 2008, was built on four major pillars, right? Which is sustainable economic development, conservation of the environment, preservation and promotion of culture, which includes, them wearing their national dress or playing the sport, and of course, good governance. Imagine this country has used these factors as their pillars of progress. And this whole concept also is not something that's stationary. It's constantly evolving. Today, compared to 2008, there are so many more pillars of the gross national happiness, and it includes things like education or mental health. That's how progressive this small, mysterious country lying in the Himalayas is. It is so fascinating, every time we visit it or live there, to actually live this with the people every day. It's amazing. So just like we encounter, things like archery by chance, Arpita and I on our trip encountered another interesting activity. Can anyone guess what's happening here? Here, they are actually building a house in the old traditional method. They are pounding mud. So if you look at this picture carefully, it's not very clear though, but here what you see is that mud wall. In front and behind it, sandwiching it are two planks of big, big piece, like walls of wood. And between that, they pack the wood, the mud, and stand on it and pound it. Wasn't it so amazing to watch, Arpita?
Not only that, the song, it's like a rhythm when they sing and then they start pounding. It's automatically you do it. I mean, with the rhythm. That's really fantastic. I think our guest has enjoyed it, so even they have enjoyed it so much thoroughly.
Absolutely. And for me, for someone who had got a chance to live in Bhutan, for 2 years, Arpita, I had never seen this. Because this, especially in the bigger towns of Bhutan, maybe in rural areas it still continues, but it's certainly an art that's dying, a tradition that is ending in Bhutan, because more and more, as you see, the architecture is slowly moving towards, more modernized, concrete, multi-story, taller buildings, where you see lesser and lesser of these hand-pounded, handmade, pounded earth homes.
Yeah, found it.
So anyway, it was super, super special, not just for the guests, but even for us. It's amazing when we enjoy a trip so much. So that was about Punakha, and from there we come to back. We sort of circle back to Paro, the place where we got off at the airport city. And this is our last destination here. And again, a beautiful valley set alongside a river. And one of the highlights of Paro is we visit a beautiful museum. So this, what you see here in front of you, the round building, was in the yesteryears built to be a watchtower. It's up on a hill, and but as you know, Bhutan, a lovely, beautiful, Buddhist country, loves its peace and quiet. Over the years, has actually been reducing its army and its budget for military year after year because it doesn't want, wars. And this watchtower was converted into a beautiful museum, and we get to visit this museum, and it's a lovely sort of summary, towards the end of the trip, after having experienced so much in the country, to sort of have like a synopsis of it in a museum. In fact, the natural history section of this museum is especially wonderful, considering that this country is 70% forest covered. It is the world's only not carbon neutral, but carbon negative country, right? Which produces more oxygen than, warming gases like carbon dioxide. It's just fascinating. And again, speaking of Paro, we go back to our trip, mine and Arpita's, and this lovely, lovely, we were just driving along Paro, going from one place to the other, and we were driving along the river. And Arpita suddenly, from the moving vehicle, starts like screaming. She's like, stop, 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 stop. Because she thought she saw a river rock move. And thank God we stopped, because in front of us, when we scanned that area, we saw this beautiful bird which is called the ibis bill. We always look out for it. And look at this lovely camouflage. It is almost exactly the same colors and almost the shape also of the rounded rocks that are along these Himalayan rivers. How beautiful this bird is, isn't it, Arpita?
Absolutely. And it's a special bird as well. I mean, it doesn't have any like cousins. It is the one and only in its family. So that makes it really special. And look at the colors
Absolutely.
and the beak of its behavior. That fascinates me the most.
Yeah, that curved beak, especially adapted to go around these rounded rocks to
Rocks.
pry for food. Yeah, amazing, amazing. Arpita, this just makes me think that, things like the ibis bill or, the florican or the gharial, which are all these endangered creatures dependent on fresh water streams, especially the gharial and the ibis bill. And
Very much.
just the sheer pollution or changing these streams or building dams, and all these wonderful creatures get affected.
Absolutely. It's very disheartening. I mean, when we look from the ground, I mean, and especially all these animals and birds, they are so susceptible to any kind of pollutants in water because they have to leave a small amount of change, transform their whole form of life. And we are losing them day by day. That's really, really heartbroken. And we got to see it. At least we will die seeing it. Yeah,
No, I know. It's amazing that Bhutan has kept some of these streams that run right through their cities clean enough, and
clean. So clean,
and
yes.
amazing enough that we can see these things right there, even while driving along the city. That was so amazing, just wonderful to see at multiple levels. Anyway, and with that, in this last destination of Paro, we come to our grand finale. Actually grand, and actually the final
Right.
experience of the trip, the tiger's nest. It is really a marvel that those many hundreds of years ago, this beautiful structure was built on an absolutely vertical mountain face. When you look at it from far away, it does look intimidating, like how am I ever going to get there? And in fact, on most of my trips, we've noticed that guests are worried about it right from the beginning. So that briefing that happens in Kathmandu, we already start getting questions on how is it going to be on the last day when we climb up the tiger's nest. And we totally understand. I mean, look at this. How do we get here? So to explain our guests, we usually break up this trek to the tiger's nest into three parts. So we start off from the base, which is the parking area, and we climb up. It's about an hour and a half till we reach what we call the midpoint. Right at this midpoint is actually a lovely quaint cafe where you can have a seat, have a sip of coffee, catch your breath. It's also a time when it starts getting cooler and cooler, so because you're getting higher, so you put on your jackets and all the rest of it. And what better than a cafe at a midpoint where you have a direct view of the tiger's nest? So even while you're resting and catching your breath, you have this wonderful view in front of you. After this midway break, we continue our walk further and we reach what we call the viewpoint. So it's high up. It's almost exactly the same height as the tiger's nest, which is again at about 10,000 feet approximately altitude. And from here, you have an eye level view, a beautiful view of the tiger's nest, as you can see us here. But from here, so the tiger's nest is here and the viewpoint is here. Between that, there is a big V-shaped path, which is a stairwell. It's a staircase. So you get down from here and climb up again to finally reach this beautiful temple. And it's an exhilarating feeling. I mean, of course, it's just as beautiful even from right here to see it from the outside. But some of us who make it into the temple, uh, we are given a lovely interpretive trip through the different sections of the temple by our very able guides. And that marks the end of this beautiful trip of Nepal and Bhutan. And yeah, we climb back down and end up for our farewell dinner back at the lodge. And that's the final day before all of us fly out, on our, to our respective countries out of Paro. So yeah, well, with this, we hope you enjoyed this lovely virtual trip. It's really just a snapshot. It's impossible to cover every single detail of the trip.
Absolutely. There are lot more to share. I mean, so many things we could not reveal. I mean, we could not even say it because of the time. But for that, I think it would be wonderful to have you all in the trip some way, someday or the other, or some of the year, because it's a wonderful experience. And trust me, Payal, I think you would also agree with me. I mean, doing trips with Nat have, I mean, it's always an experience for us, and even we do enjoy every bit of it. I mean, do imagine
Absolutely.
we have wonderful people, I mean, wonderful guests along with us. We each end up being like a family, and it's a beautiful story. I mean, every day we can live it. I mean, live there. I can be the tuck-in if any day I get a chance.
You know, the second calf, Arpita, jumping up when the snow falls.
True. Uh, yeah.
Fantastic. So with that, Kendall, we would like to end our presentation and open up for questions. And Kendall, I hope you enjoyed this presentation since you've been on the trip with us.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I had a wonderful time with you, Pyle. So many wonderful memories. It really is such a special trip. I would go back in a heartbeat for sure. And speaking of, if anyone wants more information on this trip, you can, of course, visit our website. But do give us a call or send us an email at the office, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. All right, let's get to the Q&A. By far, the most popular question is elevation. What are people going to experience when they're on this trip?
So for Chitwan, it's like 150 to 800 meter. This is the elevation, though we don't need to reach out that 800. It's almost remained to 150 to 200 maximum elevation. So Chitwan is very pleasant. I mean, in the morning it gets little colder, I mean cooler, but after that, when the sun is up, you feel very comfortable.
Yeah, and speaking of Kathmandu and Bhutan, both are at high altitude. Kathmandu at about 6,000 something, and Bhutan, we do touch 10,000 feet. One at the pass, as you may have noticed in the trip, and one at Tiger's Nest. Those are the two high points, the highest altitudes in the trip. But both these places we spend very little time up there. You know, we are there only for a short time before we come down. However, we just give me a moment. Sorry, my battery died. Sorry. So yeah, speaking of elevation, sorry. So those are the two highest points. But other than that, in Thimphu and Paro, we are at about approximately between 6,500 to 7,500 feet. It is high altitude. Anything higher than 5,000 is somewhere very careful. And as Kendall will vouch, and so will Arpita, that we constantly remind you to be well rested, to be well hydrated. And when we reach Thimphu, we actually take it really easy. And as you may have noticed in our presentation, that our walks and hikes only start down in Punakha. When you are back at a lower elevation, that's where you start warming up and you start getting acclimatized, and you slowly go back to Paro, which is at a higher altitude, and there you are almost ready, your body is ready to take on to the hike of the Tiger's Nest. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a slow build to help you acclimate along the way for sure. But speaking of Tiger's Nest, a lot of people are wondering about fitness levels. What kind of fitness level do you need to be to do the hikes just in general on this trip, but in particular Tiger's Nest?
So in general, we mark this trip between moderate to difficult. But I must say that we've had, just going by experience, Kendall, we've had a fairly good success rate even for Tiger's Nest. I think people imagine it to be much worse than it is. And also the paths, they are, though it's ascending, they are level almost at most places, and they're wide. And we take it really slowly. We don't rush. We have had times when we've completed the trek in 2.5 hours, and there have been times where we've walked slowly, taken our time, and enjoyed the whole experience over even 5 hours or 6 hours. But to answer the question, between moderate to difficult is where we place this trip with Mehta.
Mhm. So someone here is wondering about the weather in Chitwan. As you mentioned, it was the photos are taken in winter, but it looks very lush there. And I was just wondering if you could talk about just the weather in general over this trip. What can people expect in terms of temperatures?
Okay, I mean, especially when NATAP trips happen in Chitwan, it's mostly in winter and the late winter. So the temperature would be, I mean, at night and very early in the morning, it can be around 10 degrees centigrade. I mean, when it's very cold, and after that, it can reach to 34 to 35 degrees centigrade. Once the sun is up, it's little humid. I mean, more than the heat, it's little humid because of the habitat and the deposition of the dews and stuff. The humidity level goes high, but that's how the temperature is. But I can tell that it's very soothing. I mean, you don't feel, I mean, very cold. You don't feel very hot, but it's nice. It's nice, especially during the time the NATAP trips happen. Is
Yeah,
it
and
okay?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And even Bhutan is somewhat like that, in that range, where 10 degrees Celsius, we mean, I just looked it up, it's 50 Fahrenheit, which is somewhat the lowest that it goes, and going up to, about, how do we say, I don't know how much is 25 degrees Celsius. I just 77 Fahrenheit, about 70 to 80 Fahrenheit. So between
Right.
50 to 80 Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's good to pack layers for the trip, for sure, I found.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, quick question about food. Is the food really spicy, or can people have food mild?
Good question. Yeah, good question. We have a really interesting range of food that you're going to experience on the trip, like you saw. You're going to try a lot of traditional dishes, but also some Western and other continental cuisines are offered on the trip. Spice levels in general, Nepal it's not too spicy at all. It's very, very enjoyable. It's really full of beautiful flavors. You don't have to worry about like heat too much. Coming to Bhutan, the emadatsi dishes with chilies can be really, really spicy, but we serve you a sort of milder version of it so that everyone of any different palate can enjoy it. And all the rest of the food is not too spicy at all. Kendall, what did you think about the food when you came on the trip?
I definitely a good mix, and of course, people, the people, the restaurants are accommodating to your needs. I tend to like things on the extra spicy side, so I enjoyed it. But of course, if you're not keen for spice, they'll definitely accommodate you.
No, I don't
Absolutely.
get. I don't think that would be I mean, that would be a problem because all the lodges, wherever we step in, they know, like in prior, they know what are the criteria, how things would be. According to that, they place the cuisine in front of you so that you can enjoy the food.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the food was just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Everywhere you went.
Right.
Yeah. All right, we're past the top of the hour, so I'm going to ask you just a few rapid fire questions on wildlife here before we close it out. Someone was wondering if the spotted deer keep their spots throughout their lifetime or if that's just something they have as juveniles.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they keep it for their lifetime. But saying that, that's a very good question. These hog deer, when they are juvenile, they have the spots. But when they grow up, they loses those spots. But in spotted deer, they always have these beautiful spots in their body, in their fur.
Mm-hmm.
So you
And
always
so a couple questions on the birds that you showed earlier, Payal. There was a bird that climbed the walls. Someone was wondering what that bird was called again. And I think in the same slides or around there, there was a raptor. Could you repeat the name of that raptor?
Sure. So the bird that you saw on the wall, it's actually called the wall creeper. Wall creeper. You can look it up. There's just one, I think. We don't have other species in India, at least. And the raptor next to it was an accipiter, a sparrowhawk. I think it was the
crested
crested goshawk.
sparrowhawk. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crested sparrowhawk.
All right. And someone was wondering what those flowering trees were that you showed towards the end.
The cherry blossom.
Those are cherry blossoms. Yeah, cherry blossoms. They are not native to Bhutan. They are brought from Japan.
They're beautiful. All right, well, I'm going to call it there with the questions. Thank you so much, ladies. Again, oh, just amazing memories just flooding back to me watching this presentation. It was such a special trip. And for those watching, if you are interested, again, visit our website. You can see the trip pages there. You can find our contact information to give us a call at the office, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to both of you for closing comments, and let's start with Arpita.
Thank you so much, Kendall, and thank you everyone for attending this and listening to our very, very special trip together and the countries which is very close to our heart. Thank you so much. Hope to see you there soon. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you all for coming, signing in and listening. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for all of you coming here and listening to us every day. Thank you for giving this opportunity. We were just talking about it before we started the webinar. It is so great, even for us in India here, you know, for Arpita and me to have the opportunity to collaborate, relive our memories and collaborate and work on these webinars together to present it to you. We really, really enjoy it. And thank you, Kendall, for always having our backs and making this such a smooth process. And I hope to have you back on another trip with me.
I would love that. Thanks again, ladies. And my thanks as well to everyone who tuned in today. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation and we'll have the replay available on our website soon. And with that, I'll conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. Good night, ladies.